Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for gathering for today's press conference on the border measures. My name is Kamoshida Naoaki. I'm the Director for International Press Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and will today serve as a moderator. We hold this briefing today to update you about border measures to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. New measures were introduced in the recent few weeks, and for foreign nationals residing in Japan under certain categories are now allowed to re-enter Japan from today, and also some frameworks were announced for resuming travel. So these measures will be explained later. So let me introduce today's briefers. Next to me is Mr. SHIMOARAISO Makoto. He is Director of the Office for COVID-19 Preparedness and Response of the Cabinet Secretariat. Next to Mr. SHIMOARAISO, we have Mr. ORITA Kentaro. He is Consular Policy Coordinator of the Consular Affairs Bureau of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And at the end of this table, we have Mr. MATANO Seiji from the Immigration Services Agency. He is an attorney, Deputy Director of the Immigration Department. After our introductory remarks, we'll take questions. And this briefing is given on the record, so you can quote the name and title of the briefers. And we'll take questions not only from those in this room, but also from those who are watching live streaming. For those who are watching online, please send your questions by email to the account of the International Press Division. So now I would like to invite Mr. Orita to make introductory remarks. Mr. Orita, please.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Kentaro Orita, Consular Policy Coordinator. I'd like to explain the recent development of the cross-border travel policies of the government of Japan. First of all, from today, we are honored to start the re-entry of foreign nationals who possesses a status of residence in accordance with the decision dated 22 July of Novel Coronavirus Response Headquarters, which is in the handout. In its state, the DOJ is considering to incrementally permit the re-entry and entry into Japan by foreign nationals who possess the status of residence and others. This time, our measure covers the re-entry of foreign nationals with all categories of status who departed from Japan before the day when a country region where the foreign national is currently staying becomes an area subject to denial of permission to entry to Japan. This will cover approximately 90,000 people. With a view to containing a spread of infections, a certificate of re-entry, a pre-entry PCR testing conducted within 72 hours prior to the entry, together with other necessary documents at the immigration, must be presented together with other necessary documents at the immigration for those who come from level 3 areas, which is subject to entry ban. We uploaded the details of procedures on our website as of last week with contact information of the relevant ministry and agencies. Second, also in accordance with the decision dated 22 July, the GOJ started talks with 12 new countries and regions, in addition to 4 countries we already announced as of June, for the purpose of launching tentative scheme of bilateral cross-border travel, known as business track and residence track. The 12 countries are Cambodia, Singapore, Republic of Korea, China, Hong Kong, Macau, Brunei, Malaysia, Myanmar, Mongolia, Laos, and Taiwan. Since the operation of residence track with Vietnam and Thailand has already started as of last Wednesday, schemes with further countries are expected to be launched down the road. This decision also includes our concept of minimum business track, which is a scheme to enable a short period business trip with strict additional conditions, such as limiting lengths of stay in Japan to 72 hours and limiting users to those who travel to Japan by business jet in a small group. We're approaching with countries rather than those 16 countries which we have already started talks. On the same day of the decision, we started to accept application of residence track entry into Japan from Vietnam and Thailand. We have already seen a number of applications at our embassies and consulates. We look forward to see it operate for the benefit of the people of both countries. This is the end of my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orita. Mr. Matano, do you have anything to add, or not at the moment? Not particular at the moment. Thank you. So now we will take questions. First from the floor. When you ask questions, please raise your hand and state your name and affiliations before asking a question. Now, do you have any questions?
My name is Magda Osmi from the Japan Times. I'm assuming that I should speak in English. Is it okay? じゃあ日本語で質問させていただきます。Then ask my question in Japanese that I can make myself understood better. I'd like to ask about re-entry into Japan. Before the regulations were introduced, those that have departed which are foreign nationals can re-enter according to what is stated there. That's irrelevant, irrespective of whether they have status of residence and are the target countries, all countries. That's my first question. And the second point in relation to this, before or after the regulations have been imposed, in case re-entry is not permitted, for example, students, new students, CEOs and business manager visas, these people who are waiting for new entry. When will they have a visa issued and when will they have status of residence? These are my questions. Thank you.
Answer the questions.
ではまず私からお答えします。
Then I'd like to respond. On the first question, the re-entry and relaxation regarding re-entry status of residence, and as to whether there are restrictions in terms of countries, there are no restrictions. Up until now, there were 4 status of residence. We had restricted to permanent residents and others, but the restrictions will be lifted. And up until now, there were countries that were subject to denial of permission of entry. And with regard to these countries concerning which denial of permission of entry, the relaxation applies the same. Likewise. And the second question with regard to new entrants into Japan and future prospects. Concerning this, on the 22nd of July, in the announcement regarding the people with status of residence and re-entry and new entry, government will continue to examine that according to what has been announced on the 22nd of July. Concerning this, the respective countries' infection rate and other circumstances will be monitored. and Japan's quarantine PCR test framework, which we're trying to expand at the moment. We will see how things go on this front, so that we will study to gradually expand the scope. A supplementary question, if I may. You answered to the effect that you will examine this, and since several months ago, there are people that have departed Japan, or they haven't departed. From September to October, there are students who are scheduled to come to Japan as students. And so how many months do they have to wait? And the timeline. For example, Thailand and Vietnam, and travels with these countries, will they have to wait till this is started? Will they have to wait another 6 months? I would like to have a certain degree of clarity in terms of answers. People have some people can potentially lose their academic pursuits and occupations, and already there are such cases. So bearing this in mind, at the present point in time, perhaps you do not know when entry will be possible, but when will you be able to provide us with answers? At least could you provide that, please?
By when? About the timeline. Giving specific timeline is difficult because it is about the infection situation in different countries, including Japan and other countries other than Japan. The infection situation are changing all the time, so we are reviewing while keeping all those factors in mind, which means it's very difficult to present a specific timeline. However, as I mentioned, as of July 22, the decision was made that going forward, re-entry shall be permitted in a phased manner. That has been announced, plus the airport testing, about the PCR testing capacity at airports by September, 10,000 tests per day is the goal to expand our capacity according to my knowledge. Based on such circumstances, we are trying to prepare and proactively thinking about relaxing the conditions. I seek your kind understanding.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Swift?
Thank you very much. Rocky Swift with Reuters. A week or so back, there was a statement from the governor of Hawaii saying that they had negotiated with the government of Japan and that Hawaii would have a lifting of its travel ban in some manner, perhaps ahead of the rest of the continental U.S. But since then, I haven't seen anything from the government of Japan on that. Is that something that the speakers can comment upon? Thank you.
Maybe Mr. Orita?
About Hawaii, going forward, to relax the conditions of interactive movement of persons. We have mentioned that it shall be considered, but whether there is anything concrete or specific, whether there are concrete negotiations with Hawaii, that is not the case. Going forward, we will look at the infection situations. The possibility will be sought and decided.
Sorry, just to be clear. So are you saying that the governor's office of Hawaii was incorrect to say that they had made some sort of special negotiation with the government of Japan to lift the travel restrictions? Thank you.
What I am saying is specific concrete lifting of travel bans or restrictions, specifics have not been discussed. That is what I mean.
Thank you. Questions? So far, I haven't received questions from online viewers yet. But maybe they may need a little time to type in their questions, so maybe I should wait for a few more minutes. In the meantime, are there any questions from the floor?
Sumi from Japan Times once again. At the present point in time, those who have the status of residence and are outside of the country, as of August, how many are they? If you have this information available, could you tell us? If possible, by category of status of residence, please, if you could give us the number. I'm sorry, the handouts that we have put in your hands talks about the 4 categories, including permanent residents and others. And a more detailed breakdown is not something that we are able to answer at the moment. We don't have the figures. As of July 1st, I think this is as of July 1st, but it's been a month. So I'm sure there are people who have returned during this time. And so with regard to permanent residents or long-term residents or spouses or children of Japanese nationals or permanent residents, how many are they? The reason I ask this question is because in the past, I believe that this was brought up. The testing capacity is a major issue. And so re-entry or travel did not make much progress because of, I'm sure, the testing capacity. So when travel is expanded to cover 16 countries, the re-entry restrictions, or there may be caps placed on the number of people, or is this what you have in mind? Do you intend to introduce caps? Going forward, starting today, with regard to those people that want to re-enter Japan, we will broadly permit that. But preventing the spread of infection is an important consideration. So we have to make re-entry compatible with prevention of the spread. And so we are in a trial phase, a test phase. So a certain restriction in terms of number is possible, and that's could happen. And as you say, there are lots of people who have status of residence who will be going overseas. And so sequentially, under the framework, they will be able to return, I believe. And for your information, at the airport quarantine, the test is maximum 2,200 per day, and the number per average is about 1,580 tests. As from end of July, in airports, saliva antigen testing has been introduced. So going forward, when we resume cross-border travel, and we expect there to be an increase in those wishing to enter. As from September, I believe the tests will be 10,000 per day, which will be possible in September, or we're making efforts to make that possible. And business travel going forward, and re-entry of those with residence permits will have requirements to return to Japan. And so the status of infection both inside of the and outside of the country will be analyzed so that in a way that's compatible with prevention of spread of disease. We will have to consider the immigration policies, and so we consider to continue to examine that.
Now, received questions from Ms. Francesca Regalado or from Nikkei Asian Review. Her questions are, first, how long is the wait time for letters of confirmation from the Japanese embassies? And the second question is, how many applications for confirmation letters have the embassies received so far?
The confirmation letter and the processing time required, there is no predetermined deadline or required days, but the specific numbers cannot be mentioned, but whether there are too much that overwhelms the capacity, that has not happened. Therefore, within a few days or so, most probably, some kind of response should be available. But within how many days, that number of days cannot be mentioned at this moment. Plus, it depends on the embassies or the consulates, depending on the sites, the capacity, the processing capacity, number of applications will be very different. So I cannot mention on average, but whether there is an overcapacity of application, that is not the case.
Thank you. So these are the questions we received so far. So if there are no other questions, I would like to conclude today's press conference. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much.